Hi everyone, my name is Scott and I'm a runner. Welcome to the Run Scotty Run YouTube channel. As the video title says, today I wanted to do a recap of the virtual 2021 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon that I ran on the 19th of October, so just about 6 days ago. I ran it as part of the Whole Shebang challenge that they ran, which means from the 1st to the 31st of October, I had to run a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and a marathon. And I managed to get all of those done within 19 days, the marathon being the final event that I did. So, of course, we can't go any further without showing off the bling. There's the front of the medal, quite a nice medal. And there's the back. So along the bottom here, it shows all the distances that I ran, and I guess maybe someday I might get engraved in here the total time for all those events. Also came with a very nice technical t-shirt by New Balance with a really nice logo on a black t-shirt. Unfortunately, mine is it's a 2XL, but because I'm such a big guy, I mean, I can get it on, but it's a bit too small for me. So I'm going to be probably donating that to Goodwill. Please excuse me. I'm going to be looking down probably quite a bit here. I've made some fairly detailed notes after looking at my my data on Strava and then trying to piece together in my head kind of what happened, because you know, I was a little bit out of it after I ran this. So this is my second virtual marathon this year. I've run two of them during the pandemic. I ran one back in May, which was the Vancouver BMO Vancouver Marathon. That was a bit of a rough run. I finished that in about 6.5 hours. It got a little bit warm for about the last 2 hours, and I kind of suffered a bit. But anyway, I survived with all my arms and legs intact. What I did end up having to do, though, is mostly because of the heat, I did end up having to walk a little bit in the last couple of kilometers. So when I ran this marathon, one of my goals for this marathon was not to walk. I mean, other than when I had to stop and wait for a stoplight to get across the street, but I wanted to run the whole time. So the other goal, obviously, I wanted to run this marathon specifically because I had just turned 60 about 2 weeks before I ran this, and I wanted it to be my first marathon in my 60s. It was one of my goals for 2021. So what I essentially did was I ran 2 half marathons because obviously I didn't have any aid stations, no crew support out on the road. So what I did was I ran a half marathon, came back to the house, had a bit of a pee break, and also swapped out a couple of bottles for my nutrition, which I'll talk about in detail towards the end of the video. So that worked out quite well. I was actually very blessed with very cool conditions. I think when I started off about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I think the temperature was maybe like 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, so it was actually quite chilly. I had a sleeveless t-shirt on and shorts, so I was pretty chilly, but I didn't mind. I knew I was going to, as time wore on, it was going to warm up and my body was going to warm up. So it was overcast for about 95% of the run, and then luckily, even as the temperature did start to rise, I think it rose to maybe about 11 or 12 degrees Celsius by the time I was done. There was a bit of a breeze, so I never had any problems with feeling like I was overheated like I did back in May. So I consider myself very blessed. I had good conditions. Okay, so in the first 5K, pace-wise, I took it really, really easy. My average heart rate for the whole run was 111 beats per minute. My total running time based on the time I was moving was 6 hours and 55 seconds. My average pace was 8:33 per kilometers. So the first 5K, I was probably a little bit slower than that pace. I just really wanted to ease into it. And I was actually feeling really good. I felt light on my feet, kind of just bouncing along. And I thought, of course, thought it was going to be an awesome day, which overall it was. But, in a marathon, anything can happen. So around, so from about 5 to 20 kilometers, I managed to keep a very, very even pace, you know, just kind of ticking off the kilometers pretty regularly, and, you know, with a very even pace. Although from about 6 to 12 kilometers, I did hit a bit of a rough patch, and it was just kind of one of these things where, you know, you just kind of feel you're out there running, and it just doesn't feel like everything's completely in sync, not necessarily mentally, but, you know, just my body, my breathing, you know, how I was moving and stuff like that. So, you know, initially you know, worst case scenario, I'm always thinking, oh gosh, you know, this is it, my day's over. But, you know, I snapped out of that. And then I was trying to stay present and just, you know, focusing on, okay, maybe slow down a little bit, really focus on your breathing, you know, get your breathing under control, try and stay efficient, you know, work on your form. And by doing that, you know, I was able to get through that patch, which I guess probably lasted maybe about a half hour, 40 minutes. It wasn't, you know, real horrible, but just, you know, one of those things that did plant a little bit of doubt in my mind. But anyway, so through 20K, I was, you know, my pace was pretty even. From about 21 to 23K, I did have a real bit of a rough patch. And of course, just after 21K was when I made a pit stop here at home. And I'm not sure what was happening. For a little while, you know, that little devil on your shoulders, like, oh yeah, you know, you're done. You know, take that, call it a day. You did a half marathon. You can do the marathon some other day. But because of how things were, you know, going to be going for me for the rest of the month, I knew that this was the day, and I was blessed with perfect conditions, and I wasn't going to, you know, to let those go, because if you have a good day with great weather, you may not necessarily get another one. So anyway, I told the devil to go away, and so once I got here, and I think I spent maybe a minute 90 seconds here at the house. I took a quick pee, swapped out my bottles, and then boom, I knew I just had to get away from home before, you know, that temptation to just stay home drew me in. So then once I got back out on the road, you know, that first kilometer and a half, it was a bit tough, but then I just, you know, I kind of did the same thing. I just said, okay, just slow down a little bit, keep you know, keep your pace, keep your rhythm, keep your form, keep your efficiency, focus on your breathing. You know, you'll work through it. And then from about 24 to 27K, I got back into a really decent rhythm. I was feeling really good. And then around 28K, I don't know what happened. I kind of had this really rough patch. Again, it just started to feel a little bit, you know, now, of course, you know, a little bit of fatigue and aches and pains were starting to build up. And, you know, I was again, had to work my way through it. It was a bit of a dark place. I was in the pain cave for a while. So again, what I did was I just kind of did a bit of a diagnostic check, sort of from head to toe. Obviously, sometimes what's in here is the hardest thing to work through. But I just kind of, again, I just said, okay, slow down, get your breathing under control. You know, nice form, efficient. You know, straighten up a little bit. You know, relax your shoulders. All those little things. You know, I just worked sort of from head to toe. And, you know, by that point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, you've only got 14 kilometers left to go. You're into single digits mile ways. I mean, there's all kinds of little strategies that we use, people use, which I'm going to talk about in detail in another video later on on my channel. So once I got through that 28K, from 29 to 40K, you know, I was just ticking off the kilometers. I'd sort of managed to just kind of shut off my mind a little bit, and I'm just ticking along, letting the miles go by, focusing on making sure I'm getting in my hydration, my nutrition, not forgetting, you know, any of that, and just reminding myself of why I was there, and reminding myself that, you know, if you quit, or if you know, you're going to have to look at yourself in the mirror tomorrow, which to me is always a huge fear, and it's a huge motivator for me. So I just, you know, kind of tick through there, and you know, there were a lot of spots there where probably, you know, I had no idea what was going on in my head, and I don't remember now, but it doesn't matter. I managed to get through that stretch. Then around 41K was when I really started to feel things physically. You know, my feet were hurting, my legs were hurting, my quads, hamstrings, my glutes, my hips, my lower back was really starting to tighten up a little bit. So, you know, I was kind of, as I was running, I wasn't being as efficient, because I was always trying to move and adjust to avoid those little aches and pains. But again, I kept telling myself, okay, just keep running. You know, you've come this far. You're feeling fine. You know, my head was fine. I didn't feel like any effects of heat or anything like that, like I did in May. So I just kept telling myself, you know, you've come this far. Don't stop and walk. Just keep running. You can do this. So I did. And then, you know, sort of in that last half K, when the switch goes off in my head, and I realize, okay, you know, you've finished this thing, you've done another marathon. Then, you know, a lot of emotions well up. You know, I always tend to get a little bit choked up, because I realize that, you know, all those runs that I did, the times that I went out in the heat or in the rain, or, you know, I had to rearrange my schedule to make sure I got my runs in. Plus, you know, the length of the day, and the fact that, you know, I'm out there running a marathon by myself. I don't have all these other folks around me like you normally do in an in-person race, where you can all kind of draw on each other's suffering. It was just me out there doing my thing. And that, you know, so that last half K, you know, I was feeling pretty peppy, and we just, you know, brought it home, and life was good. So I felt, you know, overall, I felt really, really good. My energy level, you know, I never felt like I was gonna bonk or hit the wall or anything like that. So I'm gonna share my nutrition and hydration with you, and it really, really worked well for me. Now, the amounts of things that I take and how often I take them, that's what works for me. I'm a big guy. I burn a ton of calories when I run, you know, probably way more than your average person, whatever average means. But so when I tell you these numbers, that doesn't mean that, you know, don't necessarily say, oh, well, you know, this is what he did, that's what I'm going to do. Like you often hear, don't always practice things in training before you do them in a race, because, you know, what I'm going to talk about could hurt your stomach. So I wore my, I didn't bring out my hydration pack to show you, but I'm going to do a detailed video on my hydration pack. It's just an inexpensive one that I got from Amazon. So in the back, I have a 1.5 liter bladder, and that was just full of water. I only just put water in that so that I don't have to worry so much about cleaning it. But, you know, if I mix other stuff in there, so I had 1.5 liters water, and then I had, during each half marathon, I had 2 of these. So one, you know, in each side in my my hydration pack. So my plan was to drink 2 of these for each half marathon. So for a total of 4. This bottle is it's a fuel belt bottle. There's, I think, 10 fluid ounces in here. I think I measured it maybe about 280 milliliters. And in each one of these bottles, I had half a Noon tablet. This is citrus fruit, which is my favorite flavor. This is in Noon Hydration Sport. So I had half a tablet in each bottle. And then I also had about 2.5 scoops of Tailwind. This is green tea buzz, so it's caffeinated. Fortunately, I like to have caffeine in my nutrition when I'm running, and, you know, just because I've used it a lot, I didn't have any, you know, GI problems. Sometimes caffeine can cause you tummy issues or GI issues. So with 4 of these bottles in total, and then what I did after the first half marathon was I just took out the 2 empty bottles, put in 2 full ones. I already had them filled and mixed up, and in the fridge out in my garage. I actually didn't even have to come into the house other than to use the bathroom, which was good. So with total of 10 scoops, I ended up consuming, I guess, about 1,000 calories, which may seem like a lot, but based on my Garmin data, it said I probably burned over 3,000 calories. Again, however accurate that is based on the heart rate, but I never felt any problems. I took a couple of gels. These are honey stinger gels, strawberry kiwi. They also have caffeine in them. I took a couple of those with me just as a backup, in case I started to feel any real hunger pains in my stomach. Fortunately, I never did. My energy level stayed really, really high. The other thing that I used, I should say, what I did was every 3 kilometers, I drank water, and this is because this is the way I do it in training. Every 2 kilometers, I took a couple of sips of water, and then on every 3 kilometers, I took a sip. A good drink of this. So this, I would take 3 good drinks out of one of these bottles. And then I also had a smaller bottle. So, 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 K. So I used up 2 bottles, and then I had a small bottle here. So at home. So when I made my quick pit stop, I took a good slug out of that. So I guess in effect, now that I think about it, I probably consumed maybe closer to 1,100 calories in Tailwind. And then, so then I had my other 2 bottles for the second half. And then I use, as I've gotten older, I find that electrolytes are far more important for me to stay on top of to prevent cramping and muscle soreness. So I use these salt tabs. They're just like a chewable tab. So I chew one of those up, and then I take a sip of water just to kind of wash it down. Now, I know this might sound like a lot, but I took one of these every 5 kilometers. And what I found was, normally I find if my electrolytes are starting to get really, really low on a long run or a marathon, what I find is that I can feel like my watch will start to feel tight on my wrist, and my fingers will start to swell. I've actually had hyponatremia in the past during an Ironman so badly that when I crossed the finish line, my fingers were so swollen I couldn't even make a fist. So for me, staying on top of my electrolytes is super, super important. So that worked out really, really well. For my watch, I just normally run in training, and during the race, all I monitored was obviously my distance, because I'm doing my own course. There's no distance markers on a virtual marathon. And then I also had my heart rate. But again, the heart rate is just kind of a guideline because the wrist heart rate monitors on these are not terribly accurate. So anyway, I know this has been a bit of a lengthy video, and I know that I've probably rambled, but I hope that that's given you some insight into what I've used, or what I used for a couple of virtual marathons during this year in this pandemic. Obviously, most specifically this recent one as part of the 2021 virtual Scotia-Toronto waterfront Scotiabank Toronto waterfront marathon. Boy, that's a mouthful. So if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, again, everything that I've talked about here, I used because it works for me. It's not necessarily something that I would recommend, but maybe it will give you ideas if you find in your hydration, your nutrition, you're struggling a little bit. But anyway, if you have any other questions about that, please let me know below. I'll put links. I get these salt stick chews from Amazon. I used to get the Tailwind from Amazon, but I've got it from another vendor in Canada. I think they're in Penticton, BC. Anyway, I'll have links to those down below. and also the website for the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. I think they'll be running, hopefully pandemic dependent, they'll be running the real one next year. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to watch my video. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel. It would be much appreciated. Giving this video a like. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below. And I'll leave as always, I'll leave you with the thought that no matter how big you are, how old you are, your shape, your size, how far you run, or how fast you run, if you run, you are a runner. So I wish you all the best in your running journey, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care.